You're watching Gravitas with me, Rahisha Sehgal. On the show today, US President Donald Trump has proposed a plan to make Gaza great again, and that includes the United States of America taking control of the Palestinian enclave, a plan which has been vehemently rejected by the Arab nations. We will get you the complete story tonight. Also on Gravitas, it looks like an official trade war has begun between the US and China after Beijing hit back with a counter tariff of up to 15% on US imports. The question being, how big will this trade war be between the world's two largest economies? Finally on the show, we will get you a story about resilience and determination. It's about the women ice hockey players of Iran and how they are shattering barriers and skating towards their goal with courage and strength. Lots more lined up on Gravitas tonight.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too.
Our top focus in Gravitas. Trump wants to make Gaza great again, except that it's not quite in the way that Palestinians would want to be great again. For Trump, a great Gaza is an American beach strip with tourist glitz and perhaps Las Vegas glamour without any Palestinians. On Tuesday, in an audacious announcement, Trump announced that his vision for post-war Gaza includes US taking control of the Palestinian enclave. You heard that right. That's what Trump said during a joint press conference with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Trump said that the US will take over Gaza and do a good job with it. A provocative, outlandish, and outrageous statement. Hear it for yourself.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area.
So the question is, how does he plan to do a good job with Gaza? Well, his plan involves getting rid of the war-torn Palestinians.
You can't live in Gaza right now, and I think we need another location. I think it should be a location that's going to make people happy. You look over the decades, it's all death in Gaza. This has been happening for years. It's all death. If we can get a beautiful area to resettle people permanently in nice homes and where they can be happy and not be shot, not be killed, not be knifed to death like what's happening in Gaza.
To put it simply, Trump wants Gaza to become a part of the American empire, to take control of Gaza, displace the already war-torn Palestinians, and transform the tiny coastal enclave into what he refers to as the Riviera of the Middle East. Is this Trump's idea of peace or a colonial fantasy wrapped in slick talk? And where does this leave Palestinians who have already lost everything so far? His vision for post-war Gaza has sent shockwaves across the globe, but no one is more outraged than the Arab world, which has resolutely rejected Trump's Gaza fantasy. Saudi Arabia, considered Trump's closest ally in the oil-rich Gulf region, rejected the displacement of Palestinians. Saudi has said it would not hold peace talks with Israel, which is a long-term goal of Washington, D.C., unless an independent Palestinian state is created. Meanwhile, Egypt said that it is committed to an independent Palestinian state along the 1967 borders. Remember, Egypt is also a key U.S. ally in the region and one of the mediators of the Gaza ceasefire talks. Cairo's statement, however, did not mention Trump or the U.S. directly. But Egyptian officials have said in recent days that they will not participate in the displacement of Palestinians from Gaza. Well, neighboring Jordan and Egypt have yet to respond to Trump's comments, but they have previously rebuffed Trump's suggestion. In fact, just a day earlier, as Trump started to talk about moving Palestinians out of Gaza, 5 Arab foreign ministers in a joint letter warned the U.S. that such a deportation would push the region towards more tension, conflict and instability. The Arab nations have long pushed for a Palestinian state in both Gaza and the West Bank, with East Jerusalem as its capital, and that's the majority view in the world's nation too. If the United Nations is any indication, which remains largely in favor of a two-state solution, a solution that would allow Palestinians self-determination, and Trump's proposal to take over Gaza, it violates that very principle. Well, UK Foreign Minister David Lammy told reporters, and I'm quoting here, "We've always been clear in our belief that we must see two states. We must see Palestinians live and prosper in their homelands in Gaza and the West Bank," unquote. UN Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese called Trump's plan unlawful, immoral and completely irresponsible. In the US, reactions from the Democratic lawmakers were swift and sharp. Democratic Senator Chris Murphy called Trump's suggestion a bad, sick joke. He said, and I'm quoting him here, "I have news for you. We are not taking over Gaza." That's what he said. You see, there are also practical reasons to why Trump's idea is a fantasy. For one, Arab states vehemently oppose this, and it's their money and land that would be needed to make Trump's plan work. Plus, the complete evacuation of Gaza would deal a serious blow to statehood demands and also create a precedent that could also raise doubt about the Palestinian presence in the West Bank. Remember, the United Nations calls it, just like Gaza, an Israeli-occupied territory. Then there is the idea of large numbers of Palestinians agreeing to quit Gaza for a suburban idyll elsewhere. The question being, for what? What is Trump's grand plan to rebuild Gaza by forcing its residents out? His whole vision for Gaza sounds more like a pitch for a dystopian real estate project than a post-war recovery plan. Does he plan to build casinos and resorts? That too, in a devastated Palestinian enclave. The whole concept relies on perhaps a superficial understanding of the war. It is the war that has left them dispossessed. Where are they supposed to go, and with what money? As it is the Palestinians who have long been haunted by what they call the Nakba, or catastrophe. That's when 700,000 of them were dispossessed from their homes. And that's during the war that surrounded the creation of Israel in 1948. Many were driven out or fled to neighboring Arab states, including to Jordan, Syria and Lebanon. Here, many of them and their descendants still live in refugee camps. Some went to Gaza, of course. Israel disputes that account, that they were forced out. But it does not change history. What's more, Trump's intention to secure Gaza with American soldiers will also bring back memories of the disastrous American invasion of Iraq. It destabilized the entire region, not to mention sullied America's reputation in the Arab world as well. Plus, President Donald Trump's proposal also marks a major departure from America's decades-long commitment to a two-state solution. It would see territorially distinct states for Israelis and for Palestinians, the latter made up of the occupied West Bank, the Gaza Strip and East Jerusalem. But is this remarkable assertion from a sitting American president just a Trumpian ploy to suggest the extreme and then fashion an agreement between the regional foes along more moderate lines? If nothing else, this extraordinary suggestion has woken up everyone. From the diplomatic ennui caused by repetition of the familiar, interrupted by rising and continuous waves of violence. Remember, 15 months of war have caused a colossal humanitarian impact on the Gaza Strip and on the displaced Palestinians. They have just begun returning to their damaged homes. Experts estimate that it will take 350 years to rebuild Gaza, a land that has endured 5 wars in under 2 decades. The fragile ceasefire that came into effect on January 15th offered Gazans a sliver of hope and stability. But Trump's announcement less than 20 days later feels not just outrageous, but dangerously destabilizing. Where does this leave Palestinians who have already lost everything? That's the question that needs to be answered. In the raging US-China trade war, a cool China has stumped aggressive Trump. The reason we say this is because not only did Beijing swiftly respond to Washington by imposing counter tariffs, but also accused the US of suppression. And that's after its postal service said that it is suspending parcels from China and Hong Kong, a move that could hit Chinese e-commerce giants Temu and Shein. Well, China announced a wide range of measures targeting US businesses, including Google, farm equipment makers, and the owner of fashion brand Calvin Klein. Minutes after new US tariffs on Chinese goods took effect. US, on the other hand, seems to be on the back foot right now. The US Postal Service on Wednesday halted an order to suspend incoming shipments from China, a day after announcing the suspension over President Donald Trump's tariffs on China. The Postal Service said that it would actually continue accepting all international inbound mail and packages from China and Hong Kong Post. It added it is working to implement an efficient collection mechanism for the new China tariffs to ensure the least disruption to package delivery. China so far has done a good job in hiding its anger. It urged Washington for talks after saying that there would be no winners in this war over tariffs. This even as Trump said that he is in no hurry to speak with Chinese President Xi Jinping. But how far can this war escalate between the world's 2 largest economies? Beijing and Washington have gone neck and neck on tariffs during Trump 1.0, but since then, a lot has changed. The Chinese economy is no longer reliant on US as it was in 2020. China rather strengthened its trade ties across Africa, South America and Southeast Asia. It is now the largest trading partner of more than 120 countries. As Trumperica retreats, Xi smells a bigger opportunity. While Trump is sending jitters across its European allies by threatening to impose tariffs, China appears calm and perhaps coming across as a more attractive global partner. On Wednesday, the Chinese Foreign Ministry criticized the US measures and expressed strong dissatisfaction and also resolute opposition to the imposition of tariffs on Beijing. China called for a dialogue between China and the US, while also defending China's counter tariffs as a requirement to safeguard its rights and interests. The Chinese spokesperson said China will take unspecified measures to safeguard its rights and interests on Chinese companies. And that is if the US does not back off right now.
The United States uses the fentanyl issue as a pretext to levy 10% tariffs on imports. China deplores and firmly opposes it. The measures that China takes is necessary to protect its legitimate rights and interests. Trade wars and tariff wars have no winners. Threatening China with pressure leads nowhere. China urges the United States to correct its wrongdoings, solve each other's concerns through equal-footed consultation, and promote the sound, stable, and sustainable development of U.S.-China relations.
Lin also mentioned about the phone call between Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping on January 17th, where China had clarified its position on this issue, and of the two sides reaching a consensus of mutual cooperation. But what it got in return was just more tariffs. And as far as dialogue between the two countries is concerned, Trump said he is in no rush to speak with Xi, despite signaling earlier that the talks could take place sometime early this week. Meanwhile, Trump's White House press secretary Karoline Leavitt said U.S. will not allow China to continue to source and distribute deadly fentanyl into the U.S., which is also the prime reason why tariffs have been affected. This spells doom for stock markets as investors brace for volatile market activity in the coming weeks. Already, the dollar rebounded after the news of tariffs, while the offshore yuan extended its loss to 0.3%. And China, being a major market for U.S. energy exports, with the imports totaling more than $7 billion last year. According to Beijing customs data, the impact could be huge, and as far as geopolitics is concerned, this sets the stage again for the two rivals to battle it out. What lies ahead? Watch this space for more. Well, they say money and spirituality don't go hand in hand, but for Aga Khan, it was quite the opposite. The Imam of the Ismaili Muslims and head of a major aid foundation, who passed away in Lisbon at the age of 88, was also a billionaire in his own right, who used his huge reserve of wealth to build homes, hospitals, and schools for those in need in other countries. On Wednesday, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, taking to X, condoled the death of Aga Khan, describing him as a visionary who dedicated his life to service and spirituality. But who was he? And why does his story matter? Born as Prince Shah Karim al-Husseini, at a young age of just 20, Khan became the spiritual leader of the world's millions of Ismaili Muslims. This even as he was still studying at Harvard and led the global Ismaili Muslim community for over 6 whole decades. But what made a community repose its faith on such a young person to lead them? You see, Khan was chosen by his grandfather, Sultan Mahmud Shah Aga Khan, over his son, Prince Ali Khan, to lead the diaspora of Shia Ismaili Muslims, apparently so that he can instill new age values among his followers, who considered Khan to be a direct descendant of the Prophet Muhammad. And not only did he win recognition from his community, but also from the late Queen Elizabeth II herself, who recognized Khan as His Highness, and that's just a few weeks after he became an Imam in 1957. Over the years, Khan evolved into a business magnate and also philanthropist. And 10 years later, in 1967, he founded the Aga Khan Network, which employs 80,000 people and finances programs, particularly in Asia and Africa, as well as in countries with limited healthcare access. This made him a man who could straddle both with the material and spiritual world. And post his death, condolences have poured in from all parts of the world to honor this well-known figure. As per the Aga Khan network, his successor will be announced soon. Some people remain immortal even after death. And seeing Khan's truly rich legacy, it's safe to say he was one of them. Well, let's also tell you what else we have lined up for you on Gravitas tonight. Bangladesh has green-lighted a proposal by Fly Jinnah, which is the Pakistan private airline, to operate direct flights between Dhaka and Karachi. And this decision by Bangladesh, it is apparently hurting Bengali sentiments. We will tell you why on the show. Also on the show, we will tell you how Sweden's violent reality is undoing its peaceful self-image after 10 people were killed in a shooting at an education center. Also on Gravitas later, Prince Harry's visa status in the US faces scrutiny under the Trump administration. Shifting our focus to Bangladesh, where the actions of the interim government led by Mohammad Yunus are causing unrest among the Bengalis. Recently, the Bangladeshi government reportedly approved a proposal from Fly Jinnah, which is Pakistan's private airline, to operate direct flights between Dhaka and Karachi. This is a big step, keeping in mind the historical context between the two nations. This decision will re-establish air connectivity after nearly a decade of no direct flights between both the countries. The reports came just days after Mohammad Iqbal Hussain, who is Bangladeshi High Commissioner to Pakistan, announced that direct flights between the two countries would be unveiled in the coming months. He said that enhanced air connectivity between Lahore, Karachi and Dhaka would promote deeper trade and business ties between Bangladesh and Pakistan. Earlier, it was reported that the Civil Aviation Authority of Bangladesh had approved the proposal and was awaiting Fly Jinnah's request for flight slots and frequencies. Now, Fly Jinnah is a joint venture between Pakistan's Laksan Group and UAE-based Air Arabia, a low-cost carrier headquartered in Sharjah. Now, here's why this is big. Well, there has been no air connectivity between the two countries since 2015. And that's when Pakistan International Airlines PIA operated its last flight to Bangladesh. The push to improve air connectivity also follows the establishment of a direct maritime link in November last year. In November, the first cargo ship sailed directly from Pakistan to Bangladesh in decades, unloading its containers at the port of Chittagong. And all these recent developments indicate that Bangladesh, under the Yunus government, has been moving closer to Pakistan. During Bangladesh's 54th Victory Day celebration, Yunus did not mention the country's founding leader, Mujibur Rahman, a move which also raised eyebrows. Remember that Bangladesh and Pakistan are not traditional allies. Bangladesh became an independent nation in 1971 following a war against the persecution of the Bengali people by Urdu-speaking Pakistani officials and military leaders. A liberation struggle that led to the creation of Bangladesh. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says that over 45,000 Ukrainian soldiers have lost their lives defending the country against Russia. That's since 2022. And now, With the war entering a dangerous phase and US President Donald Trump mounting pressure to end the war, Zelensky has finally blinked. He has agreed to hold direct talks with Putin. Our next report decodes what made the Ukrainian president to take this call. Take a look.
The war nears a breaking point. Outgunned and outnumbered, the Ukrainian troops are losing ground to Russia in the eastern region. A decisive battle is playing out in the strategic city of Pokrovsk. Moscow is capturing as much territory as possible, while Ukraine struggles to defend its front lines. With time running short and Trump administration pushing for a truce, Ukrainian President Zelensky has agreed to hold direct talks with his Russian counterpart Putin to end the conflict.
If our allies believe we must move to the diplomatic track, and I believe we are ready to move to the diplomatic track, there must be the United States of America, Europe, Ukraine, and Russia. Isn't it a compromise already? We will talk to Putin. A conversation with him is a compromise for him.
Zelensky's comments come in the wake of much-awaited talks between Trump and Putin. Although Trump promises to end the war in Ukraine, how exactly he ends to do that remains unclear. This is much like his pronouncements, ranging from threats to pull US military support for Ukraine to threats of further economic sanctions on Russia. Kremlin has dismissed Zelensky's call for dialogue, dubbing it empty words. But the Ukrainian president is bargaining hard. He has issued a bold ultimatum to his Western allies.
If this process, accession to NATO, drags on for years or decades, not because of us, but because of partners, then we will have a just question. What will be defending us against this evil for this whole time on this path? What support package? Which missiles? Will we be given nuclear weapons?
With Russia calling Ukraine's demands absolute madness, the war seems to be far from over. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
If you're a woman born in Afghanistan who lives under the perennial fear of the Taliban rule, we feel you. And most importantly, we hear you. In a fresh blow to women's rights in the country, the Taliban has suspended the operation of Afghanistan's only women's radio station after raiding the area on Tuesday, thus barring women from voicing their views and opinions. Now, why is this concerning, and what does this mean for the overall women's rights in the country? Kabul-based Radio Begum, a station run by women with content aimed at women's education, was forced to stop operations after the Taliban's Information and Culture Ministry searched its office and restrained the station staff. In a statement on Tuesday, the station said that the officers seized computers, hard drives, files and phones from Begum staff, including Begum female journalists, and took into custody 2 male employees of the organization who do not hold any senior management position. Clarifying the move further, the Taliban's Information and Culture Ministry said that it suspended Radio Begum on grounds of unauthorized provision of content and programming to an overseas TV channel. This is even as the Taliban did not identify the foreign TV channel in question. It said it will determine the station's future in due course of time. Needless to say, The move has received backlash from several quarters, including Reporters Without Borders, or RSF, which is an independent rights group, which condemned the suspension and demanded its immediate reversal. And as for Radio Begum, the station said it has never been involved in any political activity and was in fact committed to serving the Afghan people and more specifically the Afghan women. But why does it matter? You see, prior to the ban, Radio Begum broadcast 6 hours of lessons a day along with health, psychology and spiritual programs to women across most of Afghanistan, which means it served as a forum to inform and educate women and thus empower them in various spheres. Not just that, its sister channels also offer lessons online, which are shot in studios thousands of miles away in Paris. The classes, which are televised, cover a wide array of subjects. Just to refresh your memory at this point of time, the Taliban had banned girls from attending schools beyond 6th grade. Thus, portals like Radio Begum have been extremely important in delivering the knowledge that the women of Afghanistan need, in a bid to keep them abreast with what's happening in the world at large. And what is the Taliban doing? The Taliban is decimating women's dreams, dignity and rights and tightening its noose around women's freedom, one decree at a time. However, the Taliban's crackdown against women is not a novel phenomenon per se and has very much been the mandate since it rose to power in 2021. This is despite the group initially posing itself to be more moderate than it was during its previous rule of Afghanistan in the 1990s. As this time around, the Taliban promised that women would be allowed to continue their education up to university level. Clearly, these were all empty promises by the Taliban, the impact of which is now being felt by an entire generation of women. And it's not just them who face dire consequences under the Taliban, but also those who have stood up for them, including ministers in the Taliban government itself. Case in point is this Taliban minister, who now appears to have been forced to flee the country. What was his fault? Expressing support for reversing the ban on girls' education in Afghanistan. Here's what happened. On the 20th of January, Mohammed Abbas, Taliban's deputy foreign minister, criticized the government's ban on girls attending secondary schools and higher education. While speaking at a graduation ceremony in Khost province near the Afghan-Pakistan border, he said, and I quote here, "There is no excuse for this, not now and not in the future." He also said, and I'm quoting him again, "We are being unjust to 20 million people. During the time of the Prophet Muhammad, the doors of knowledge were opened for both men and women." Pretty uncanny for a Taliban minister to say so. That too in a public forum, given Taliban's explicit anti-women policies. And not just him. Another Taliban minister too had a similar position on the education of girls in Taliban. We're talking about Mohammad Nabi Omari, the Taliban's deputy minister of interior, who was moved to tears while speaking about the group's strict restrictions on girls' education, which have been imposed by Taliban leader Hibatullah Khundazada. In a video widely circulated on social media, Omari is seen breaking down during a speech on the closure of girls' schools as he urged for their urgent reopening. Now, to get a sense of the situation on the ground better, does this suggest that the Taliban government remains divided? That is, when it comes to basic human rights, such as the right to education and to express freely. To get a sense of what is happening there, WION spoke to Mehbooba Siraj, Executive Director for AWSDC, that is Afghan Women's Skills Development Center. Listen.
There's a lot of fear here, and the fear is absolutely real. Because there is no personal security in Afghanistan anymore. So anything can happen to any woman in Afghanistan at any minute, really. It just their lives, their livelihoods, their freedom, their whatever. They don't have any freedom, but whatever they have, that everything and anything could be taken away from them in a blink of an eye. This is what is actually happening, and we don't really know how to stop this. And then when it happens, the strangest thing is that there are some of the Taliban that they are not for this, and they are against all of this.
Now, the main question is, despite the several odds that women in Afghanistan are confronted with, can they gather the strength to fight back and reclaim their fundamental rights? Well, we'll have to wait and watch. Moving on, in Sweden, about 10 people have been killed in a shooting at an education center, including the suspected gunman. Swedish Prime Minister says that this is the worst mass shooting in the country's history. But a lot of questions are still unanswered. The violence occurred at Campus Riksbekska in the town of Orbero. The Orbero police chief has said that they cannot be more specific about the death toll due to the large number of those wounded.
This situation update is related to today's tragic event at the Riksbekska Adult Education Campus. We now know that around 10 people have died there today, which is why we cannot provide more specific details at this time. This is due to the extent of the damage. Our current efforts involve several parts: identifying the deceased, following up on the condition of the injured, and conducting an extensive investigation.
Sen handlar det också om en omfattande utredningsarbete.
Police are not aware of a motive yet, but they do not currently suspect terrorism as a motive. The police chief also said that they believe that the gunman acted alone and he has not previously been known to the police. He is believed to be among those killed, and search is ongoing at the school for other possible victims. An eyewitness who was at the school when the shooting took place has recounted the event.
A guy next to me was shot in the shoulder. He was bleeding a lot. When I looked behind me, I saw 3 people on the floor bleeding. Everyone was shocked. They said, "Go out! Get out!" I and my friend tried to save the life of this person. People were very shocked.
A candlelight vigil was held near the site of the mass shooting. Several people lit candles, recounting how amid the chaos they saw people panicking, trying to get hold of their loved ones that were inside the school. Well, egg prices in the United States have surged 50% over the past year, with the average cost of a dozen eggs hitting $5.29 as of January 18th. As the egg prices are on a surge, Pennsylvania State Police is trying to crack the case after 100,000 organic eggs worth $40,000 were stolen from the back of a distribution trailer over the weekend. The surge in prices mark a sharp increase from 2024, when eggs were priced slightly over $3.50 per dozen. The rise accelerated post-November, coinciding with the presidential election. In just 2 months, prices jumped from $3.65 in November to $4.15 in December. Well, according to the Bureau of Labor, the USD report an 8% rise price in hike December alone, signaling a sustained upward trend. The primary driver behind this price spike is the ongoing bird flu epidemic, which has claimed over 13 million hens since December. This has severely disrupted egg supplies nationwide. Seasonal demand during this winter holidays further strained the availability of eggs, while the Trump administration blames Biden for supply chain disruptions. Experts point to the bird flu's direct impact. Meanwhile, tariffs on imports could compound food price pressures in the coming months in the U.S. The egg crisis is now affecting both businesses and consumers. Major chains like Waffle House have now introduced a $0.50 surcharge per egg, citing unprecedented cost increases. Meanwhile, thefts targeting high-value egg shipments have also been reported, including a $40,000 heist in Pennsylvania. The USDA predicts egg prices will rise another 20% in 2025. And as the political blame games unfold, American households are left grappling with rising cost of what was once a staple. A US-based conservative think tank, Heritage Foundation, has been locked in a legal battle. And that is to obtain Prince Harry's visa application records. And that is to know if he lied on drug use since his admission in his memoir, Spare. A court in Washington, D.C. has ordered the Duke of Sussex and the complainant to appear before the court. According to U.S. immigration law, admitting to illegal drug use can lead to visa denials or any other kind of consequences. The foundation alleges that Harry may have either lied on his immigration forms or received special treatment, prompting their request for transparency. In a lawsuit last year, Heritage Foundation sued the Department of Homeland Security for access to his visa records. But this request was denied by the judge on privacy grounds, prompting them to appeal. All that is likely to change as Prince Harry's visa documents are examined for the first court session under the Trump administration. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle moved to California after leaving the United Kingdom in 2020. And during his campaign trail last year, amid Prince Harry's visa row, Trump vowed to deport the prince. The think tank has called on Trump, who has now taken a tough stance on illegal migration and tougher border controls, to get Prince Harry's files released and also ensure transparency. Well, in his memoir, Prince Harry revealed that he tried cocaine when he was 17 years old to feel different. That's what he said. As Heritage Foundation alleges that the prince concealed these facts in his visa application, it remains to be seen whether the federal judge reviews the judgment on releasing Prince Harry's application records or not. Well, according to a Reuters report, India's finance ministry has asked its employees to avoid using AI tools like ChatGPT and DeepSeek for official purposes. The Reuters report quotes that the ministry sources that the idea is to avoid any risk posed to the government documents and data. Well, India's move follows similar restrictions placed by Australia and Italy. Well, both Australia and Italy have banned DeepSeek from all government devices. Reports say that the Indian Finance Ministry, in an internal department advisory, has said that it has been determined that AI tools and AI apps such as ChatGPT, DeepSeek, etc. in the office computers and devices poses risks to the government documents and data. Reports of the advisory have surfaced on the same day as OpenAI CEO Sam Altman met with India's IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw. OpenAI is under fire in India due to a major copyright dispute with the country's leading media organizations. More than 5 Indian media organizations have now filed a lawsuit against OpenAI, accusing the company of, and I'm quoting here, improperly using copyrighted content by reproducing material from news websites without permission. Meanwhile, OpenAI has said that copyright laws protect only expression and not facts, adding that the Indian lawsuit is irrelevant. Well, US President Donald Trump issued an executive order last month halting the development of a US central bank digital currency or CBDC. This move aimed at regulating assets, which has unintentionally opened the door for global alternatives, most notably China's digital yuan. With over 98% of central banks worldwide engaged in CBDC, the US ban risks isolating the dollar from a rapidly evolving financial landscape. Experts warn that this could accelerate de-dollarization as countries seek faster, more efficient cross-border payment solutions beyond the US dollar. China's digital yuan has been in development since 2014, making the country a global leader in CBDC adoption. Despite competition from private players, like Alipay and WeChat Pay, the digital yuan recorded transactions worth 7.3 trillion yuan, which is approximately $1 trillion by July 2024. Nearly 180 million personal wallets have been opened as well, reflecting China's aggressive push. Initiatives like Project M-Bridge involving Hong Kong, Thailand, UAE and Saudi Arabia are also expanding the yuan's cross-border reach. Meanwhile, agreements with global banks, including Standard Chartered, signal China's intent to globalize the digital yuan. Yuan's growth aligns with China's broader strategy to increase the yuan's global footprint. In 2023, the yuan surpassed the US dollar in China's bilateral trade settlements for the first time. By mid-2024, it ranked fourth globally in payment volumes, that's ahead of the Japanese yen. The petro-yuan is gaining traction in crude oil transactions, challenging the dominance of the petrodollar. While China's cross-border interbank payment system, or CIPS, is key to this shift, with global banks like HSBC joining as direct participants. Well, as the US steps back from CBDC, China is positioning the yuan as a serious contender in reshaping global finance. Well, in the midst of the ongoing Mahakumbh Mela in Prayagraj, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi offered his prayers and took a holy dip at the Triveni Sangam. Take a look. Heavy snow is being driven by the coldest air mass this season across northern Japan. A record 129 centimeters of snow was recorded in the Obihiro city in the past 12 hours. The snowstorm is expected to linger across northern Japan until Thursday. Take a look.